Going to spend some time talking with our good friend, Dr. Gary Chapman, 5 Traits of a Healthy Family. Dr. Gary Chapman, certainly well known to our listeners, an individual as an author, speaker, pastor, counselor. You know him best, of course, for the 5 love languages, and those titles all associated under that umbrella, now selling over 20 million copies. He's been on the New York Times bestseller list continuously since 2007. Many of you perhaps do hear him on Moody Radio Network, on other affiliate stations, and we're going to be talking about this new book on 5 Traits of a Healthy Family. So, Dr. Gary Chapman, it's always great to have you on the program.
Well, thank you, Kerby. It's good to be with you again.
You start out by saying you've been in the family business for more than 45 years, so I guess it is obvious that you would want to write a book that wasn't just looking at love languages or marriage, but also looking at families in general. And so you break it down into 5 particular areas.
Yeah, Kerby, you know, what I'm trying to do is to make it, give a picture of what a healthy family looks like. We have so many people today who've grown up in dysfunctional families,
yes. Mm-hmm.
And they say to me in the office, you know, honestly, I don't know what a family is even supposed to look like. And so what I'm trying to do is to give a picture of what a healthy family looks like based upon the scriptures. And I think this concept has been very helpful. I've used it, of course, in my counseling for many years before I actually wrote the book. So I'm excited about it.
Well, again, I would encourage people to number 1 to 5. And the first one, part 1, is families who serve. I grew up in a family like that, and in which there was, you are blessed with all of these great opportunities, and your circumstances are such that you should not just enjoy them, but you should pass them on to others. And so you do talk about not only adults who serve, but children who do as well. And that is a sense in which a family that's giving out is really oftentimes thriving, isn't it?
Absolutely, Kerby. You know, Jesus is our example, and he said about himself, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for others. So we're not here just to be blessed. We're here to take whatever blessing comes our way and reach out and share that with other people. So when you have that, when a husband has that attitude of serving his wife, you know, I'm here, honey, to enrich your life, to help you become the person you believe God wants you to be. She has that attitude toward him. Kerby, this is really what changed my own marriage, because my wife and I struggled greatly in the early years of our marriage because she wouldn't listen to me, you know. And one day I said to God, I don't know what else to do, but this is not working out, and I don't know what to do. And as soon as I said that, there came to my mind a visual image of Jesus on his knees washing the feet of his disciples. And I heard God say, that's the problem in your marriage. You don't have the attitude of Christ toward your wife. Hit me like a ton of bricks, you know, because I remember what Jesus said. When he stood up, he said, you call me leader, you call me teacher, and you're right. But in my kingdom, the leader serves.
Yes, I just love that.
You know, God changed my heart and gave me an attitude to serving her. And for me, 3 questions made it practical. One was, honey, what can I do to help you? Second is, what can I do to make your life easier? And the third is, how can I be a better husband?
So good.
And when I was willing to ask those questions, she had answers for me.
One thing I love about your chapters, one of them has a title, Can Someone Take Out the Trash? I think I've heard that said in our household, and I think I've said that in our household, although I think pretty much I recognize that's my job. But the point you're making is that this is a lifestyle that if the parents aren't modeling it for the kids are pretty much convinced that they can just sit back on the couch and look at their iPods and their iPhones and things of that nature. And so if you have an emphasis on serving one another and serving others, you're going to have a thriving family. And that's exactly what we all want anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and children don't learn this by nature. Now, it does seem to me in the early years they have this idea, because even 3-year-olds will say, Mommy, can I help you? Mm-hmm. Mommy, can I help you?
Yes.
And I don't know why they lose it by the time they get to be teenagers, but but our job is to help them realize this is a way of life. We want to help each other, and then we want to take it outside the family. One of the things we did with our kids when they were 10, 11, 12, and along in there, I'd get them in the car, the two of them, one son and a daughter, and put rakes in the back of the car, drive through the neighborhood in the fall, looking for yards where the leaves had not been raked.
Yes.
And say, I knock on the door and say, hey, I'm Gary Chapman. We live down the street here. I'm trying to teach my children how to serve other people. And if you don't mind, we'd like to rake your leaves. And they would say what? And I'd repeat my little speech. I never had anyone that wouldn't let us rake their leaves. And the kids loved it, And we're here to serve other people. So, yeah, in a healthy family, it's going to look like that.
Let me take the second one real quickly because we've talked about this idea of families that serve. The other one, husbands and wives who relate intimately. This illustrates that a close marriage and a strong marriage gives you a strong family, right?
Yeah, and some people, when they think of intimacy, they think only about the sexual part of marriage. But I'm talking about intellectual intimacy, sharing our ideas, our opinions, and not being put down by each other. And emotional, sharing our emotions.
Yes.
That's where the love language can be very helpful, of course, in meeting the need for love. But socially, doing things together socially, going to church is one of those, of course, anything, but just going with other people, doing things with other people. And then certainly spiritual intimacy, where we're sharing our journey with God. And I don't mean preaching to each other, but honey, here's something I read this morning. It was really helpful to me. Rather than, I read this morning and you need to hear this.
It's not the best way to do it. And again, I love what you do because you give concrete examples of emotional intimacy, social intimacy, and spiritual intimacy. And then the very last one, of course, is physical intimacy. And it just, again, one of the things I've always appreciated about you, Dr. Chapman, is very practical kind of material that people can find. And I think I might also mention that there are other resources, building love together in blended families, building love together in special needs families. Of course, all of the various books related to the love languages, sections on family time and screen kids, and so many others, which are part of the book. I did want to at least cover the first two, and those have to do with families who serve. Number 2, husbands and wives who relate intimately. Book is entitled 5 Traits of a Healthy Family. Came out in July. Probably can find it in your local bookstore, but if not, we have a place where you can obviously order it, and it is something that I think would really be helpful to your family. For those of you that are in teaching situations, you may be a pastor, a Sunday school leader, a life group leader, something like that. I think you will find this very helpful as well as you lead your congregation or your area of influence. And we've talked about a couple of the key traits, one having to do with service, another having to do with intimacy. But a third one now gets us into family, and that is Dr. Chapman. Again, we're talking about parents who guide, talking, doing, and loving, and really understanding the importance of those love languages, whether it's words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, receiving gifts, or acts of service, and really even understanding the love languages of your children, and then really trying to maybe implement what could be called creative teaching.
Yeah, I think, in the scriptures, 2 words are used. It says we're to bring up our children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. One of those words focuses on words, teaching. The other is on actions. So it's teaching and training, and those two always go together. Yeah, we're explaining things to our children. We're challenging them to do certain things. We have guidelines for them that we've set up, but we also are practicing that and showing them how to practice those things. When you put words and actions together, you're likely to be successful in training your children. I sometimes illustrate this by the mother who goes out and Johnny's playing in the backyard next door, and she says, "Johnny, dinner." Little Johnny keeps playing. She repeats it every 5 minutes, and then she says, "Johnny, get home." And Johnny comes home. Why did he come home on number 4 and not 1, 2, 3? Because he's learned that if he doesn't come home when Mother says, "Get home," she will walk down there in the neighborhood and take him by the hand and walk him home. And he does not want Mama in the neighborhood. So he comes home on number 4. So I say, all you got to do is take the action that you normally put on number 4, move it up to number 1, and Johnny will come home on the first call. But please tell him you're changing the paradigm. Don't shock him. Words and actions.
Well, and again, one of the things I thought I'll maybe bring that with the 4th section, and that is children who obey and honor their parents. And you might say, well, I want my kids to obey me, but that gets back to the point that you need to make sure they obey you. And you talk about in one of the chapters why obedience matters, and what a great setup. I'm going to be talking about this new article that's come out in which it's talking about lawlessness is spreading across the country. Now, I will cut to the chase because it turns out that there is a very good reason why lawlessness is actually spreading, and that is we don't punish bad behavior. And so whether you're talking about a child who recognizes that he or she can disobey time and time again and not actually suffer the consequences, or whether it is a criminal who has now heard that we're only going to consider thefts of less than $950 as a misdemeanor, you have the same kind of problem. I think a lot of it goes all the way back to the family, doesn't it?
I think it does. School teachers say to me, one of the most difficult things we have is just keeping discipline in the class. They don't respect the teacher, because they didn't learn to respect their parents at home. So as parents, we want to set our children up to realize there are rules in life, and every family has their own rules. Parents make those rules, but there should always be consequences. So when you tell a child, we're not going to throw the ball in the house, we play ball outside but not in the house, and if you do, the ball has to go in the trunk of the car for 2 days. And if you break something, we'll have to pay for it out of your allowance. So that when the child does throw the ball in the house, you know and they know what the consequences are. And so you just lovingly say, okay, honey, I really appreciate the fact that seldom do you break the rule, but you broke it this time, right? And you know what has to happen. And he starts crying, so let's walk out to the car and put the ball in the trunk, and he walks with you, and you say, but listen, I'm so proud of you because you seldom break the rules. We wrap our discipline in love, but we let them suffer the consequences. And they learn that in the home, then they're going to practice that in public.
And again, that's back to the previous section on the challenge of consistent training. And that gets back to, Johnny, come on home, or, dinner's ready. If you are not consistent, and that's where, as you well know, and as an individual who's done counseling for some time, sometimes the kids play mom off against dad, or they play your family against the family down the street where the hooligans live. And so it's going to be really important if you're going to really deal with these issues to actually have consistency. But in the interest of time, let's say if again mention one more, because we talked about parents who guide, children who obey and honor parents. Last one, husbands who love and lead. And you really begin to take us into what this idea of leading means, and that's really key, isn't it?
I think it is, and through the years, I think there have been folks who have misinterpreted the Bible when it says the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. And some will say, well, that means he's the president, she's the vice president, or he's the general. Or listen, the biblical example is there. He's the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. What did the head of the church do? He died for the church. He's a leader in serving his wife, meeting her needs. And when a husband takes that kind of leadership, because God said it's not good for the guy to be alone. Why would we make decisions on our own when God gave us a helper? 2 minds are better than one. Mm-hmm. So the husband has that concept. We're partners, and I'm going to take the lead in reaching out to meet your needs and meet my kids' needs. He sets that example. Chances are that wife is going to begin to reciprocate. In fact, I did a little research, Kerby, and found out that not a single wife in the history of this nation has ever murdered her husband while he was washing dishes. Not one.
Such a great line. Let's talk about how people can use this. First of all, near the back of the book, you have another QR code, and it goes to 5lovelanguages.com/5traits, but you could actually just go there directly. So that's a free resource, and we do have a link to 5 Love Languages. Now, you have to use the number 5, then lovelanguages.com, but you don't have to even remember all of that because you have a section that we have in our book and, of course, a section that we have on our website and a number of other places where people can find that. Then you have quizzes and resources and events. You have a whole store and other material So in some respects, there is just an abundance of resources, Dr. Chapman, that you have created over the years, which would help with any particular problem that you may be dealing with or any particular proactive program you'd like to begin to develop to either strengthen your marriage or strengthen your family. And it's all available by simply going to the number 5, lovelanguages.com. But again, if people wanted to take this particular 5 traits of a healthy family and then have some additional material, that's available on your website as well, isn't it?
It is, and what we're trying to do there is just give more practical ideas on how to implement these 5 things. I really believe if we could get this into the hearts and minds, let's just start with Christians. You know, the book's not written necessarily to Christians. Anybody can have a healthy family if they're halfway sane, you know. but if we can set an example, we can turn things around. If we change the family, we can change the nation. And I think we are where we are because we haven't done a good job in having healthy families.
So again, about 180 pages, published by Northfield, which is an imprint of Moody. And so you can certainly find it in your local bookstore. It's been out since July, early July. So now that we're about mid part of that month, I think you should be able to find it. But if you cannot, we first of all have a link to 5lovelanguages.com. We also, if you click on the book, can get a copy of it in paperback and Kindle, and it's a resource that I think you're going to find very helpful. As always, Dr. Gary Chapman, it's great to have you on the program, and as always, I look forward to the next opportunity.
Well, thank you, Kerby. Always good to chat with you. Keep up the good work. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. We hope you appreciated our conversation today. For more information on what we talked about, check out the links in the description of this episode or go to our website, pointofview.net. If you like this episode, follow us, tell a friend, and rate us so that we can continue bringing you the best highlights from Point of View. We'll see you next time right here on Point of View Highlights.